Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Your teammate training. Their beepers go off. And then they come back and they tell us all to go to our individual platoon huts. So this is during the workup cycle, and basically the cycle of the workup where guys are taking vacation or going to courses, right, to update their quals.
Right.
And so not everybody that's in your platoon is around, right? So what happened is I go up to my platoon hut, and there's a couple older guys there in the platoon hut, not many. They got the TV turned on, and one of the buildings is already hit.
Yeah.
Then the next one hits. Then I was a new guy, so I didn't have a beeper. Their beepers go off. And that day changed our life, because at first we thought it was an accident,
Yeah.
or maybe we didn't know.
Yeah.
But then the Pentagon and the other building hit, and that changed our lives.
Changed all of us, dude. Changed all of us.
Yeah.
So the reason I ask is everybody knows where they were on 9/11, right? And I'm always intrigued to find out where you guys are. You know what I mean? So Scott Mann. You know Scott?
Yep.
So Scott was on our podcast. He's actually been on twice now. He was on again for the second time last week. And the first time we got his life story, right? Like we do with everybody. And I asked him where he was on 9/11, and he said I was driving, and he said, and all of a sudden my commanding officer just whipped a U-turn and back to the base we went. And he goes, we knew when that second plane hit, we knew that our lives had changed forever, So so talk about, so you go to Rutgers,
Right.
you go to law school.
Right.
You decide at some point that you're going to do this SEAL swim. Will you talk for a second about what created that? Because there are people listening to this, Bill, that are thinking about getting involved. They're thinking about supporting their community. They're thinking, right? And I know you well enough now to know why you did what you did, but do you mind talking for just a second about the mindset and the thought process that went into it?
Right. So one was when I did that 65-mile run.
Yeah.
For the Veterans for Education Jeremy Kane Scholarship, raised a lot of money and had good publicity. I had a big, and that was inspired by David Goggins.
Right.
I had a big victory in the back of my head, right? Now I had another buddy named Shannon Roche who put together a different swim called the LKN SEAL swim. And they swam Lake Norman.
Okay.
And Lake Norman is about 13 to 15 miles, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But the way they did it was different. We had two boats, and then one boat was full of Dam Neck guys, SEAL Team 6 guys. The other boat was vanilla SEALs like myself. And we would swim for like 15 minutes, tag out, and another guy would swim.
Right.
And we did that the whole way. And at the very end, we got out, and we all swam in, and they had these fire boats, and they had the big water display. We swim under, and then they had a huge, like it was a sports bar and grill, and they had right off these boats, docks, all these boats, and they had literally hundreds of people with these big American flags cheering us on as we swam under the water display in there, and big American flags. So that I love that. Because in New Jersey, people aren't as patriotic as they are down south.
Yeah.
So that had a big, big impact on me, So I had both of these spheres of influence in the back. And so I had to go to a federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. I was doing some bankruptcy stuff. They called it a creditors meeting. And so the law firm I worked at the time, McCarter and Inglis, which in my opinion was extremely woke. But what happened was they had us, main office is in Newark, so I take the path to the Oculus, which is right by the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
I was a SEAL on 9/11, so I had to walk by that, and it had a big impact on me. Then I would walk to the lower federal courthouse, and I took the path, the subway back to New Jersey. And then like a week later, I had to go to a courthouse in Jersey City. And as I'm driving to Jersey City, I'm on a turnpike, and to my peripheral is the Statue of Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And I start thinking to myself, I'm like, the Statue of Liberty to 9/11 Memorial, the world, that's not that far.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what's in between it? The Hudson. I was like, SEALs, we can swim.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna do some type of great fundraiser there, and it's gonna be for some great cause and some that helps veterans, and that's it. And then so I sent out a couple emails to my friends, and before you know it, I had 33 SEALs sign up. And here's something that's so funny. So I believe in a reciprocal approach. Now, Remy Adeleke is a very kind of interesting SEAL because his family was royalty in Africa. And then a corrupt government, I think his father actually gets killed. They become refugees in Brooklyn in New York City. He winds up kind of like me, surrounded in a bad atmosphere, makes some bad decisions. Just like me, the Navy saves his life. He becomes a SEAL, right? Now he winds up writing this book, and I think it's called Redemption. I'm not sure, but I think so. But he writes this book. Now he's doing a charity event in North Jersey, I find out, where he's jumping out of airplanes. So I was like, all right, let me leave work early. Let me drive up there. I haven't jumped in years since I got out, but I've jumped hundreds of times. And I say, hey, I want to help you guys help out with the charity. And they said, well, you haven't jumped in so long. Sorry, you have to jump tandem. I'm like, Jesus, I never jumped tandem in my life. I'm not really fond of strapping up on a guy's lap.
Right.
But
not exactly something I dream about, right?
No, but I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I do it. Remy jumps. And while I'm on a plane, his publisher was there, and we wound up becoming friends. Her name's Carolyn Mullen.
That's cool.
And I fist pump her right before I jump out. Then she lands, I land. And when you land from a jump, you always have a euphoria because it's kind of an exciting thing. You're happy you landed, So I pick her up and I spin her around. Turns out, well, number one, Remy, he winds up promoting the swim on some of the media attention he had for his book. So in his moment to shine, he gave it back to us.
That's cool, right? Man.
Now his publisher was had a lot of friends at Fox. All of a sudden I'm talking to people from Fox, and I invite them like on a call that I have, initial planning call with all the different supporting assets like the Port Authority, Jersey City Police, PAPD. I didn't know Pete Hegseth was listening the whole time.
Oh, wow. That's cool. See, I told you, people are watching, dude. People are watching.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
He took that thing into the stratosphere.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
and guess what? Hell, if we didn't stand by him when he needed it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's that reciprocal, right? And, besides the fact that as well as anybody how important it was that he be the SecDef, man. I mean,
our country was at a tipping point.
Oh yeah,
our country was at a tipping point. And you know what? I love diversity. I believe, but I also believe true diversity is diversity of thought. All this cancel culture stuff where they're shutting people's freedom of speech down and their ability to earn a livelihood, like it was out of control.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of complicated threats going on in our military. Was when they gave trillions of dollars of military gear to the Taliban, who have American blood on their hands, I was disgusted with leadership in the Pentagon. I was like, I had enough. And thank God thank God we got a real warrior in there who loves our nation. I am so grateful.
Yeah, and he wrote a book called War on Warriors, that kind of thing. I mean, he's awesome, right? I mean, I'm a huge Pete Hegseth fan. In fact, I want to get him on the podcast. I don't know if I'm going to get him, but I want to get him on the podcast. So it'd be awesome if we could. Anyway, so you're involved as a lot, right, in supporting veterans and that type of thing. Talk about what you're doing. I mean, in addition to the SEAL swim, obviously, on the Hudson, what else are you doing that's where you're involved in addition to the stuff you're doing in Washington recently?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things to it. I think I'm out there. There's a lot of different groups that reach out to me, and if they're out there doing good, man, I'm going to help them.
Yeah.
Like
it seems like that's your deal. That's like, you know what I mean? Like you're constantly giving back, and that's a big deal, man.
Well, I want to be, I got to tell you, I like to fight, man.
Yeah.
And I want to be, just give me a good fight.
Yeah.
And just let me, and you know what? It's a good time to kind of be like, you look at what's going on with our country before, like, look, if you weren't getting canceled, you probably weren't standing up.
Yeah.
And I can probably say I've been one canceled mofo.
Yeah.
But I love technology.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we can do with humanity as a whole, we're living at a really great time. Yeah. But there's also a dangerous time. Mm-hmm. Because look, I was a first responder to 2 suicide bombings, and look, if good men and women don't stand up, we could be in trouble. Yeah. And so I realized the realities of the world, and there's, you look at all the terrorist different entities, the jihadist entities, you look at all these foreign intelligence agents that are using them as proxies. You're looking at on a Cold War mentality with China. Like there's never been more complex, dangerous threat environments to us all. You can look even recently, when almost every major city was unsafe, when they had all these riots, mm-hmm. and they're not arresting people because they want to support a political base, and really making us all unsafe, so they can retain power. And so I think what happened with the woke part of the Democratic Party regained control of the Democratic Party, and I think a lot of reasonable people lost their say. Yeah. And thank God so many Americans stood up in this last election and said enough's enough. Look, Trump won every swing state. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, I think if they had voter ID, he would have won every state. Yeah. Like the American people had enough. Like, we believe in diversity. I don't care who if they're consenting adults, I don't care what they do. Like, if in their bedroom, I could care less. I love diversity. But I believe in Martin Luther King's example, like, judge a person by their character, judge a person by their merit. And that's what we need to get back to. You can look, I'm not going to go into the personal things of what happened in that recent crash, but they look like there was some DEI involved in that. Mm. Also, you look at what happened, the mismanagement in LA with there's big fires. I think there's a lot of mismanagement, corruption involved in some of this. And so I just hope we get back to what Martin Luther King was about. Look, judge a person by their character. I think Pete's had the strength and courage to say, look, we want to focus on things that unite us, not things that divide us. And like every other month I almost look at it like when I look at law school, when I looked mm-hmm. at one of the reasons I started the first veterans degree at scholarship at Rutgers, because when I was looking at possible scholarships, I was like, well, I'm not gay, so all these scholarships aren't available. I'm not a minority, so none of these scholarships are available. I was like, wow, it doesn't look like there's really anything available for me. And so I started a veteran scholarship. Look, when I went to McCarter and English, which is worked there, the largest and oldest law firm in the state of New Jersey, they had this diversity retreat every year. I'm a leading veterans advocate. I'm a leader in the SEAL community. They didn't invite me. It's like, it's like, I'm not like the diversity they're looking for, I guess.
Yeah.
So what I think we should focus on is things that unite us.
Yeah.
And so I know, like, look, Pete's had the courage to say some hard things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love all our female warriors. I love them. There's nobody I respect more than a woman who's put it on the line for her country. But the truth is, like, I'm a big guy. You put a ballistic vest on me, you put my gear on me, I'm almost 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
If I get hit, there's not too many female warriors that are going to be able to carry me out.
True.
It's just the truth. Or talking about climbing up a caving ladder with all your gear in the middle of the night in rough seas. That type of upper body strength, the truth is there's just not that many women available.
Yeah.
And what happened with the last administration is they lowered the standards to get the results that they wanted. In the military, that doesn't work because there's no second place. People are going to get killed because of those decisions. You look at that helicopter crash, you look a little bit into it. Look, I'm not going to go too much into it, but it looks like, certain pilot was in that position because she was gay. It does, to me, that has, I don't care what people do, in their own beds. I could care less. I don't think it should be, it puts you ahead of somebody else or reduce standards for qualification. So I disagree with that stuff. I'm glad that we're kind of getting refocused on merit because I think it's better for all of us.
Well, do you mind if I weigh in here just for a second?
Yeah.
So I don't make this podcast about me. I make it about our guests. Okay.
Right.
The only reason that I'm sort of weighing in is and this is about you. If you look at your life, just in a nutshell, just look at your life. Okay. We have your life story now, right?
Yep.
We have it on our podcast. It'll be available forever for people. Okay. And there are lessons to be learned there, Bill. There are lessons to be learned. Okay. So, and the point I'm getting at is this whole thing with they get an opportunity because X, they get an opportunity because Y, they get an opportunity because of whatever reason, right? It's not a meritocracy. And one of the things that Pete's going to do, or is doing literally, is he's turning the Department of Defense back into a meritocracy. It's one thing if you give people opportunity, okay? You open doors, right? And give them an opportunity to thrive. It's something entirely different when you make it a meritocracy and they can't get there because they don't have the upper body strength, or they can't get there because they didn't know they got an 18 on the test out of 100, right? You with me?
Yep.
That's the kind of thing that makes you into a warrior, dude. That hitting the wall and then figuring out a way. I mean, that PRT thing, I think that's one of the best stories I've ever heard. You just weren't going to stop going. You know what I'm saying? Nobody told you couldn't keep going. And you got a hold of and the attention of an instructor who then showed you something that only took probably a few minutes to do. And all of a sudden you're in. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of life lessons that people can learn and are going to learn from your life story. Okay. And none of it is somebody saying, oh, well, you have this certain belief. Let's open this door for you. That's the difference, right?
Yep.
The difference is there's opportunity everywhere. Sometimes, and I know this is going to sound like it's going to sound like I'm kissing your backside, but here's the deal. Sometimes you got to kick the door in, right? When life slams the door in your face, I mean, you're a door kicker, you know what I mean? So when life slams the door in your face, sometimes you have to kick it in. Okay? Sometimes that just has to happen. It's part of life. It's part of how this works. Okay? And your life story and a lot of the life stories that we have, almost all of them that we have on our podcast and are blessed to have, are stories where the world said no to them. And then they turned around and they worked at night, all night long, to make ends meet. And then they worked for free during the day just so they could turn a no into a yes. Okay?
Yeah,
You with me? It's nothing to
great.
do with DEI. It has nothing to do with equity and all this other hoo-yah stuff. It has to do with doing the right thing and going back to where this country is a meritocracy. And that's exactly where we need to be. And that's exactly where you were, right? You went out and just I mean, there's one thing that happened, right? The Navy gave you a waiver. But here's the thing, if you hadn't kept your nose clean, would you have stayed in the Navy? No, they would have kicked you out, right? You already had one big mark against you just going into boot camp, dude.
Hmm.
Okay. But the thing is, you kept your nose clean. You did what you needed to do, and you didn't take no for an answer. And I believe that is the story of your life. And I can't wait to see what you do in the next chapter.
You know, I think it's really about self-improvement, right?
Yeah.
It's a journey about self-improvement. It's actually about like my advocacy for, our nation, or even recently my political advocacy. It's about trying to make our nation better,
Yeah.
trying to make our nation safer. I think that's really, and even, with Tulsi Gabbard coming up here, she's a
Yeah.
veteran who put it on the line for a country. Like Pete, an unorthodox thinker, a change maker, a disruptor. Like, look, the intelligence agencies, kind of very concerning, the input they've had in these last couple of elections.
Yeah.
And to think that they've become polarized, and I thoroughly believe in the values of our Constitution, like thoroughly, like I think life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, due process, free speech, equality. Like I think our founding fathers were flawed, but I think those ideas are true. And I think our nation's taking great measures to meet those ideas. And I just think with the woke ideology and cancel culture, they've taken a step back.
Yeah.
And even with these intelligence agencies, like they've been politically compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And we need somebody in there, just like we needed Pete in the Pentagon.
Yeah.
We need somebody in there like that's going to refocus things on the way they should be. Like you can't have mass warrantless searches on millions of Americans. Like you can't interfere in the electoral right before the presidential election and have 50 leading intelligence officers basically state that a story is Russian propaganda when it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's absolutely
51. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a huge overstep and huge political interference, and that's just what we know about.
Yeah.
Or even you talk about freedom of speech and how important freedom of speech is, and so the First Amendment only applies to the government unless there's joint activity between the government and the private entity. In this case, you can look at the X files, the Twitter files that Elon Musk released.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at the recent statements by Zuckerberg. There was absolutely joint activity. And so here you had these same intelligence agencies basically stepping on we the people's right to decide like what we want to speak and about political speech. Huge overstep of power. It's and then I'm an attorney, and I really think the greatest threat to democracy, our republic, the democracy we ever faced, the preamble of the Constitution is we the people, right? We the people decide who we want to be elected, right? And so it looks like we had our Justice Department, federal and state prosecutors trying to subvert the will of the people, and our intelligence agencies by trying to take political opponents in prison and bankrupt them for the rest of their life. That's huge problems. I mean, it's a very structure of our government and our democracy. So we need change, agents of change in there, and disruptors in there, and people. And I talk about the military, I talk about the SEAL teams. The truth is, without discipline in the military, you need two things to be successful in warfare. One is you need a tactical advantage, and then two is you need discipline. Well, you cannot have discipline if you don't have accountability.
Yeah.
You look at what happened in Afghanistan. You give trillions of dollars of military equipment to our enemies. You don't have, there's no accountability there. You let a Chinese spy balloon overtly collect information over sensitive military installations, fly across the entire United States. Like, there's no accountability there. You look at all the terrorist organizations out there, and you have an open border where you have like these weapon systems that are very portable and can create massive horror. Like, and no one from the Pentagon says, no, it's a national security threat. We need to close this border. Like, there's no accountability. Like, we need accountability. That's one of the things I'm very excited with Pete, with Tulsi, is I think they're going to bring accountability to the Pentagon, to the military, to our intelligence agencies that we need to protect us. And that's really like one of the cool things. I think that, we called it Operation Full Court Press.
Mm-hmm.
We had a press conference the day before Pete's hearing with the Senator Tommy Tuberville,
Mm-hmm.
Congressman Derek Von Orden, and we had Green Beret Congressman Kevin Self,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had a bunch of SEALs and other military leaders speak. So you heard and Fox put that on live streamed it. So
Mm-hmm.
our nation got to hear the warriors class,
Yep.
like men and women who served, and say, hey, look, the Pentagon's gone astray. We need Pete to course correct. Then the day of Pete's hearing, we had a two-pronged approach, and we followed the moral high ground. And Kel's example, we got there early. Doors opened at the Senate office building at 7:30. I had my guys there by 4:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I packed the Senate confirmation hearing room with SEALs and veterans. And then I led a parade where I had 4 SEAL congressmen march with me. Congressman Eli Crane, who's a SEAL, Congressman Derek Von Orden, who's a SEAL,
Mm-hmm.
Congressman Morgan Luttrell, who's a SEAL, and Congressman John McGuire, who's a SEAL. And so they marched with me and a bunch of other veterans from the Vietnam War Memorial. We started there to give our Vietnam warriors, veterans, some love because of the way they were treated when they got home. Mm-hmm. We went to the World War II Memorial, we went to the Washington Monument, and then we went to the Capitol building. And I think that was a big flex for us. I think it's the first time men and women who served have actually rallied up for a Secretary of Defense nominee. I think that sent a good positive message, and I think it helped him get, and it was a tough fight, but I think it helped him get a couple of those Senate votes that he needed.
Well, it meant a ton to him, right? And I guarantee you, people are paying attention, man. People are paying attention. The one thing that the last administration was counting on in this whole Afghanistan withdrawal was that people would move on to something else, that they would pay attention to something else, right?
Benghazi approach.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So Scott Mann talks about it in his book, Nobody's Coming to Save You, right? He talks about this thing called the churn. Well, the churn creates, it's basically we're falling into a trance that we're allowing to have happen with social media and all the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And what it's doing is it's separating us. It's putting us into tribes, right? And it's taking our attention span away. So, the attention span of a US citizen years ago was 24 minutes, right? Now it's like 8 seconds. Okay. He's on to something. I'm serious. If you get a chance, we've had him on to talk about the book and do his life story. We talked about Operation Pineapple Express too. But if you get a chance, read the book. He talks about this thing called the churn, and he's on to something. What's interesting though is when we left Afghanistan, we left all those 30,000 people there that helped us over a 20-year war, and we promised them that we would bring them here and we would make them citizens, right? And we just left them. And we also left billions and billions and billions of dollars of equipment that they now are using for parades. Okay.
It's more
we
than
also
parades.
left. all the
enforce-
biometric data.
Yeah.
Bill, we left all the biometric data there.
So they
We
could
didn't
be
even
hunted.
take that.
So our allies could be hunted.
Yeah,
There's got to be a congressional investigation. That's
absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, that's horrible. You think about human rights. You think about the women's suffrage movement.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can all these feminists on the Democratic Party that are woke, they're fake.
Yeah.
How could you not stand up for the women in Afghanistan and the horrible life that they're living now?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think there's any greater gift you can give to someone than an education.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
when I think about what's happening in a lot of, like with Gaza, or like their educational system where it's a complete like hate poison seed, like to me that's the worst thing you could do.
No,
But what's happened in Afghanistan, where they just straight deny all these women, and they're like subhuman, like they can't even go to school, and like, okay, you're going to be over here, and you're not going to even speak up about that, then you're a fraud. In my eyes, you're a fraud.
Yeah.
Because what I want is, look, I've been to a lot of third world countries.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly can't blame someone from a third world country to want to have a better life and to try to get here.
Yeah.
But I'm an American, and there's a couple of things I think. One is I think about our safety.
Mm-hmm.
And number one thing is but the security threats out there, you look, when we saw what happened at the subway, that poor lady get burned alive because, somebody wasn't properly vetted when they came across this border illegally. That can't happen.
Yeah.
Like, that cannot happen. We have to have the ability to vet our people who come through our border.
I agree.
That's one. Look, what about COVID? I remember when I couldn't even go outside without wearing a mask. But yet you're not going to let anybody come across this border. What about the physical elements that could be released? Like, we have to be able to vet who comes across the border.
I agree with
And
that.
then, so that's why I say, look, we need to protect our border. And then the third thing is resources.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is, look, at Rutgers, you know what? If you were an illegal immigrant, you could get college educated. You could get like your community college courses credited to you before I was able to help get that passed in New Jersey for veterans. And it's almost like I support our country, like the Statue of Liberty. I swim by it every year. Right? You give us your weak, give us your poor. Like, I'm all about it. I love it. But you know what? You got to give love to those who put it on the line for our country first.
Yeah, I agree.
And too long have we been kicked to the curb.
Yeah.
Like, too long. And it's like, I'm not a bad person because I believe in America first. I believe in America's safety first. I believe in American businesses first.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me a bad person.
No, it doesn't. I totally agree, dude. I totally agree. Bill Brown, I cannot thank you enough for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience, man. This has been a lot of fun. I have thoroughly enjoyed every second of it. And if you ever want to come back, the door's wide open, bud. You're always welcome.
And an honor, Mike. Thank you.
Great to have you. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.